Rise of Gru just came out a few weeks ago, and it is really popular. So I'm gonna set it into a first-person shooter game. Because it's going to be a Minions game, I need a Minion 3D model, and I mean I could try and make one myself, but I wouldn't exactly call myself a 3D artist. So I browsed this really useful website, I don't know if you've heard of it before, and found a Minion which looked very cool. The only problem is it doesn't move because it has no animations. As you might know, to animate a 3D model like this one, you have to give it bones. So I spent quite a long time just lining up bones to the Minion's arms and stuff, but it didn't exactly work. So instead of just trying to fix it, I went and found a new model which is arguably more scary, but is already rigged with bones and ready for animating. I tried to make some animations for walking and attacking, and I think they look good enough. This Minion now looks pretty cool in the game, but you're probably thinking, what game? It's just a Minion. Well, I've got something to admit. I haven't actually watched the movie, and I don't know what happens in it, so I have literally no idea what this game is going to even be about. But luckily, after a bit of brainstorming, I thought of a concept for the game which sounds really fun, even if it might not have anything to do with the actual plot of the new movie. Basically, the idea is that minions will be running towards you from every direction trying to attack you, and to defend yourself you have to shoot them with this very iconic and smelly weapon. To start off, I added some first-person movement to this object, which looks suspiciously similar to a certain food. For some reason, I found it pretty cool just to move around and observe this walking minion from different angles. But if you've ever walked before, you'd know that this minion is not doing it correctly, and to walk you need to actually physically move around. I could just make the minion always move towards the player, but then it will try to walk through walls, get stuck, and just be generally stupid. So I need to actually move it using AI. Now, how do I do that? Well, I don't know. But luckily, the game engine I'm using, Unity, has this thing called NavMesh which basically does this for me. And after setting it up using some very handy tutorials from Brackeys, I had a working minion AI which will walk around obstacles and walls in order to reach the player. Now there needs to be a way to shoot the minion so you can defend yourself. I thought about what kinds of guns or projectile weapons there are in the Minions movies, and I remembered that the infamous fart gun exists, which is pretty much perfect for this game. I found this free model of the gun on Sketchfab, chucked it into the game, and set it as a child to the camera, so that it moves and rotates with it. I also gave it a bit of sway so it looks more natural when you're quickly looking around. Now, while it might look like a fart gun, it doesn't actually shoot farts yet. So I made this particle effect using Unity's particle system, and I made it play every time you press the shoot button. Now let's not talk about how the fart gun is literally the wrong color and it shoots the wrong color of fart. Who knows why I thought it shot green farts. I gave it some sounds. And using a sphere cast, which is like a wide array cast, I checked for objects in front of where you shoot the gun. When it detects a minion in front of you, it will knock them back, and when you shoot the floor, it will launch you up, which just adds an extra fun way of moving around. I also added some particles for when the minions get hit, and a bit of a death, or more just a shrinking animation for when they lose all their health and die. Now the game was feeling really smooth and polished, but it lacked something very important, an actual environment or level which you can kill the minions in, so I need to make that. I first thought about just making a big manually handmade room with lots of obstacles scattered around, but that would have taken way too long, at least an hour or two. So instead I decided that I was going to make a procedurally generated level, which is randomized every time you play, kind of like a maze. Well, not kind of, I'm literally generating a maze. I found this really useful website which explained exactly what I would need to do to generate a maze, and all I would have to do is convert this simple stuff here into code. It should just take a couple of minutes, right? Right? Well, anyway, first I generated a grid of tiles out of a thing called a 2D array and gave all those tiles walls. Then, to make the actual path of the maze, I had to use the algorithm from that website. Basically what it does is it chooses a point on a grid, marks it as visited, and then randomly selects another unvisited point next to it to move to, which it then marks as visited as well. It continues this until it hits a dead end, where it then has to backtrack to the nearest point with an unvisited tile next to it. That was probably very confusing, but after spending hours and hours trying to convert it into code, and almost destroying my computer, it finally worked. and what a surprise, it took a lot longer than it would have if I just handmade it. This maze looks kind of empty though, so I need to make the minions spawn in it. What I did was choose a random spawn position on the map, and then using the Navmesh pathfinding thing from earlier, I was able to snap that position onto a walkable area. I made it so that every time you kill a minion, a new one will spawn somewhere else on the map, and now the game was technically playable infinitely. There's still a lot that I need to add to actually make this a fun game. Firstly, you can't really call these things minions yet, because they don't make any annoying sounds. Okay, that's better. Secondly, it's pretty boring just pressing this same shoot button over and over, and it can get pretty repetitive, so I think I needed to introduce a new way to deal damage, aka the Mega Fart, which you can activate by right clicking and does a ton more damage in a way bigger range. Obviously, this would be a little OP if you could do this all the time, so I made a cooldown system where you recharge the Mega Fart by dealing damage to enemies. Thirdly, the minions don't actually do anything to you yet either, they just put their hands up in this weird way, so I also made this health bar and made them damage you and play a sound when they attack you. Now, because you can lose your health very easily because of this, I balanced it out a bit by adding some collectible health power-ups which spawn around the map in the shape of, you guessed it, bananas. All I had to do now was make some balancing changes, add bigger minions with more health, smaller faster minions, and add a score and high score system, and the game was finished. While the whole game is a pretty stupid concept, I mean you literally shoot farts, and even though there is a lot of bugs, flaws and things that could have been done way better, I think the end result is surprisingly fun, and I would have to say it is truly one of the games of all time.